at that from Tom's perspective. So welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you with us again.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, good to be here.
All good. And I can see your slides are ready to go. So over to you. Thank you, Tom.
No problem at all. Hopefully you can all see my screen okay. We don't have long today for the demonstrations, so we keep the intros quite brief. We'll go straight into the demonstration and kind of start to show you a bit about the software. So if I just come out of here, go into the application here. And yeah, I'll do a very, very quick introduction to who we are for people that haven't come across Halo before. So we're a UK-based software company with offices in Australia and America. So we've got the full 24-hour coverage, but we are based over in Suffolk in the UK. And yeah, and Halo is a platform designed for ESM, for IT as well. And I'm going to give you an example today and just talk you through some workflows about how kind of examples, implementation of ESM that kind of Halo does. So I've got a few examples set up here for facilities, for HR, for IT. We're going to go through as much of that as we can today. We don't have time to go into kind of use cases and case studies and things like that, but if you just hop onto our website, go into the case studies, there's loads of good case studies kind of talking you through kind of implementations of ESM at Halo. So go into here. The other two tabs I've got open here, we've got the what we call the agent interface. This is the view that your team would log into, the resolvers would go into. This is the view here. Then we've got the self-service view, which would be your customer-facing view, which we've just branded up here for SDI, just to give you an example of kind of your own branding that you could put on it. So I wanted to start today actually from the configuration side and just talk you through a little bit about how Halo is structured and how all the data is segregated as well, because it is a really important thing about how people are often nervous about expanding from IT through to ESM, just because of that data segregation and how it's all structured. But Halo is built from the ground up to be designed for this use. So if I just take you into this diagram here, this won't resemble your true organizational chart. But what it really is designed for is to show you basically the permissions, the silo of data how Halo is structured. So you'll see here, we have at the top here, the organizational layer, and this is the organization. You can actually multi-tenant it as well. So if you do have multiple organizations, you can multi-tenant it. Here we just got an example of a single tenant at the top. Then underneath that, we have our departments. Then within there, we have our teams, and underneath there, we have our people. So if someone logs in from IT, we can completely silo it so they only see IT. Someone from HR could completely only see HR, and likewise facilities. And if there is any crossover, anyone that needs to access both, you can give them access to both. Okay, so that's a bit about how the structure's set up in Halo. If I just go back to the top here, you can also control which modules they have access to. And I talk about modules, but in reality, it's all included in Halo. There's no kind of tiered pricing or anything like that. It's just basically ways of controlling the view that people have. So someone in IT wouldn't necessarily need to see these facilities and HR modules, so we could just hide them off. Likewise, someone in HR might not want to see the others as well. And for anyone that's not seen Halo before, I thought we'd give you a very, very brief overview of what it's like to actually work in the tool before going on to self-service. And I've got a nice kind of new starter example to talk you through. So in terms of using Halo, you'll see as I go into, in this case, the IT area, we're viewing tickets by team. And then down the left-hand side, we have our teams of people within IT. You'll see against each person, you'll see how many tickets have been assigned to them. So that'll be your incidents, your requests, problems, changes. I'm not necessarily I'm gonna talk more about tickets today as we are talking in ESM capacity, but Halo is completely ITIL aligned. So yeah, all those ITIL processes are out the box. So you see I've got 4 assigned to me, and whatever layer here you click on, it just filters that list of tickets based on that selection. You can simply drag and drop to reassign. So I could drag and drop that to James's queue to reassign it to him. And then you see he's got 2 assigned to him there. We can also sort by any of these columns. So we can sort by things like our SLAs. We can also filter by things like priority, or any of the columns there, you can just filter in there. We can also edit the columns. So I'm just going to edit the columns here, and I'm going to introduce something like the user. We can introduce that into our view here, and then you can just drag and drop to reorder it. And this can be on a per agent basis, so people can control their own views if you want them to. When it comes to generating tickets into Halo, we've got all the standard channels you'd expect. We've got the kind of email integration, self-service portal, live chat, chat bots, lots of integrations such as like Teams integrations and telephony integrations, all those kind of nice things, REST APIs. I'm going to give you a very, very quick example of just raising one manually, just so you can see what it's like from this perspective. If I just hit the new button here. And this gives me kind of an opportunity to talk through a bit about how we'd bring in our users. And part of the benefits of ESM is that we can kind of utilize the config we would already do for IT, but we can use that config throughout kind of facilities, HR departments. One of those areas is the user list. So we would typically be synchronizing with whatever your user database is, your user sources. That's probably going to be AD or Azure AD or Google Workplace or whatever it is. We would just have that sync running in the background. And as part of that, that also enables single sign-on. So we're kind of setting it all at once, then we're reusing it for all the different people around the organization. So I've chosen my user here, and I'm just going to raise an example printer incident. And you'll see this throughout Halo. All the boxes here support rich text, screenshots, images, so you can just paste them all in there. Any links and things like that can all get pasted in there. As I go through here, we can categorize it. And because I'm logging in IT incident, these are all IT categories. But again, I'm going to show you a bit later how that's all siloed depending on the departments. And then also because I'm logging in IT incident, I'm just going to choose from our IT, going to log a printer and associate it here. And as I submit that in, that just drops into our queue. Depending on our workflow, in this example, it's going into the unassigned queue. You could have that automatically assigned based on things like the category and the, maybe the impact, the urgency could automatically assign it to the relevant people. You'll see in the background, it's suggesting things like knowledge base articles, and this is the same for all departments. It will suggest the relevant knowledge base articles. In this case, it's a print one. And as part of that, we can just click into it, scroll down the right-hand side, view all the information here. And we can also send that to the end user as well if we do want to. If that is a user-facing article, we could just send that out to the user. Okay, I'm going to move on to we don't have a lot of time today, so I'm going to move on to the self-service and show you a really quick example of, I guess, one of the obvious use cases of ESM, which is things like a new starter. So I'm going to go into the raise a request, and this is the setup we've got here with these different service catalogs for each of the different departments. So we've got things like our IT services. So we're talking about things like hardware, software, access requests, that kind of stuff. And underneath here, we've also got things like our HR requests, any of our HR options there, facilities. And these are things that you can add yourself. They're really, really easy. You just add them in, pick the images and pick the wording, and then just basically choose the workflow and the forms that sit behind them. In this case, I'm going to choose, I am going to do a new starter one. So under here, we just select our new starter request. And I'm going to do a few things here. I'm just going to go and raise this into the system. It's worth saying that these forms are really, really easy to configure. I haven't got time to show you today, but in previous kind of SDI demos, I've shown you the configuration. And if you do want to look through kind of YouTube channels and stuff, you'll see how easy it is to kind of change these. So I'm going to raise this new starter request, and I'm going to choose all my hardware options, any software options as well. And I'm just going to put that into the system here. So what we say with Halo is we have all these out-the-box processes, but they're often used as starting points. So I'm sure you'll have your own new starter processes already, which will probably resemble a lot of the things I'm showing you here, but there'll be little tweaks for you to do. So as part of the onboarding, as part of the project of the actual implementation, the consultants from Halo will kind of talk you through that, kind of tailor those processes to kind of what your organization needs, and then those workflows we built off the back of that. So I've just dropped that into the system, and that will drop into our queue here. Sorry, let's go to getting in the way. There we go. So we've got this new starter request coming, and in this case, we have got an approval process sitting behind it. So as that comes in, you'll see it's got this approval process that's triggered as part of our process. That may be a line manager process approval, it may be a kind of a business approval, whoever it might be, that approval process is then triggered. Lots of different options in the configuration, and I'm actually just going to go and approve this from here. Just put a comment in there as well. You can approve it via email on the kind of your phone or whatever it might be. You can approve that as part of the approval here. This particular approval requires 2 approvers, so I'm just going to simulate that one there as well. So one of the key use cases of ESM that we do talk about a lot is the ability for one request and spawn off different child tasks for different departments. So in this case, on approval, you'll see it's created these 3 child tasks for the different people to go and fulfill. So we've got a create new user and AD. That's a task for IT to do. That could also be an orchestrated task. We don't have time to talk about that today, but there's a task there that could be automated. We've got set up access cards. So this could be a facilities task to do. So I've created a task here for facilities, and also setting up pensions, which is a task I've set up for HR. So you'll see as part of the plan, a part of how this has been created, you'll see these particular tasks are created on approval. And we've just set up those rules to say that's when we want these to be created. Now, we still have this parent request, this parent's new starter request, which has an owner, which we're looking at here. But from an end user's perspective, they just got one request in. They don't need to worry about all these different tasks that are going on in the background. In there, for them, it's just one request they put in. But for us, it makes a lot of sense to break it down as different tasks, have all these tasks kind of go on at the same time. And all that is in Halo is these tasks. And if I go into facilities, you'll see we've created this task here. And if I go into HR, similar case, set up pension here, kind of created those tasks that come off there. And like I said before, we can control the access, we can control who can see what, and at what stages they can see it. Okay, again, we don't have long today, I keep saying. One final thing I want to talk about is the configuration side of things. And it's something that it's something that's very, if it's not set up, if the system's not designed to do it, it can become a pain for IT to have to manage, I don't know, HR's categories, for example, or whatever it is. But with Halo, we try and make it really, really straightforward. And within the configuration, each of the different entities, so if I go into, say, a workflow, we have this option of access controls. So you don't have to be a global admin to control, for example, a facilities workflow. Under the access controls, we can delegate that access, and we can say anyone with a specific role. So for example, in this case, a facilities admin, we're going to allow them to modify it. So when they go in, they're not going to see all the admin settings, they're not going to see all the IT settings, they're not going to be able to change kind of HR's workflow or anything like that, but they would be able to then have access to the facilities workflow. So you could give them permissions to certain subsets of the configuration. If I just save that, I've actually got it set open here in another window. You'll see they have this kind of my config area, and that allows them to basically control different areas that we allow them to. So they may have their own approval processes, for example, which we want to give them control to, ticket types, teams, so we might allow them to control their teams and things like can text and who's in their team, all those kind of things. So we can allow the delegation of permissions to those different administrators. It's something it's one of those things that if you don't consider it at the start, it can become a bit of a pain down the road if you do have to suddenly become the administrators of their system. So it's something to bear in mind just if you are evaluating kind of moving from that ITSM to that ESM kind of model. The other thing I want to show you is, as part of the configuration, how easy it is to create new service areas. So in Halo, we have a concept called areas. And areas are these bits here. So IT, facilities, HR, project. These are all different areas. If I go into any of these, you'll see they've got a similar kind of characteristics. You've got the same kind of list down the side, you've got the ticket list, but behind the scenes, they are areas. So in this case, we've got IT, facilities, HR, projects. What I'm just going to do is go and create another one. I'm going to create a legal one. So all we do is give it a name. Sequence is just the order they come in, if someone's got access to them all. The entity is just what they call it. So in this case, I'm going to use tickets. They might call them cases, they might call them requests. We can choose the name in there. And then finally, just the icon in there. We can then determine the permissions and the filters. I'll probably just keep it quite simple here. I'll just pick the team as, I'm actually just going to include the service desk team. So I'll just include first line support. And if I just save that, oh, they must be unique. I've already created this before. Let me create a legal team here. And you'll see what's happening here is we've created one here. If I go into here called legal, I'll create two there, sorry. One called legal and legal team. And these are just separate areas that then basically we can create whole new processes around each one and build them into each other. So just another thing, we try and make everything easy. So it's a kind of a painless experience. And that kind of gives you the benefit of getting everyone into one place. You don't have to manage multiple tools and multiple systems. And you can use the knowledge you already have. So it kind of minimizes that training cost of having multiple systems, having to understand different areas, hosting costs, all that kind of stuff. If you bring it all into one place, you've got the knowledge, it's easy to do, but you can still have that granularity of kind of pushing different teams and different permissions to each department. Okay, so that kind of covers pretty much everything I wanted to show you today. I don't know if there's any questions, any questions I can answer.
Thank you, Tom. That's great. And you're right. There are a load of similar types of content on YouTube that people could look at if they need to look at anything specific, or indeed, Tom, I think reach out as we discussed before, just to discuss any specifics around the tool set there. So thank you for that. Thank you for the overview. Yeah, really good again. There are a couple of questions that have come through. The first one we've got is related to security. So if we talk about the security model, where the whole organizations may have access to specific information in tickets or wherever, really sensitive data, how does the tool rationalize that, and how easy is it maybe to administer access to sensitive data?
So as I said before, it is role-based access. So underneath the configuration here, we have our different roles. So we have some out of the box, but you can go and create new roles. And this effectively determines what they have access and application layer. So this determines exactly what they have access to. We do also have models where they can have separate databases as well, if you do want to take it a step further. But it's fully kind of basically role-based access. So when it is requesting data, they will literally only be able to access the data they've been given permission to. But like I say, there is a model where we can do separate databases as well.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed for that, Tom. And I think you'll be joining us a little bit later as well as we look at our next Q&A session. So we're pretty much on time. Thank you very much indeed, Tom. Thank you for